Hello everyone, I am Dr. Munish Kumar Bharadwaj from School of Engineering and Technology of IGNOU. Today we will discuss about aggregates, and in this discussion we will discuss the properties of aggregates. First of all, I would like to introduce you with the BIS code that gives guidelines and specifications for aggregates. This code is IS 2386 1963, and this code has 8 parts basically. Part 1 deals with particle size and the shape of aggregates. Part 2 deals with estimation of deleterious materials and organic impurities. Part 3 of this code deals with specific gravity, density, voids, absorption and bulking. Part 4 deals with mechanical properties. Part 5 deals with soundness. Part 6 deals with measuring motor making properties of fine aggregates. And Part 7 deals with the alkali aggregate reactivity. And Part 8 deals with petrographic examination. So these are the different parts of this code which deals with the different specifications, different measurement of different properties of the aggregate. So we follow these specifications and guidelines when we look for the properties of aggregates that are used for the concrete. Let us begin with first with the importance of aggregates. Aggregates, as you know, are inert ingredients of concrete. They are not supposed to take part in any reaction basically. Aggregates provide body and strength to the concrete. Means the role of aggregate is similar to that of bones in the human body. It provides the body to the concrete basically and also the strength to the concrete. Generally they occupy about 75% volume of the concrete. Comparatively cheaper as compared to the other ingredients. Means if you compare aggregates with cement, then aggregates are cheaper, much cheaper than cement. So they govern the economy of the concrete basically. They govern many properties of the concrete like strength, durability, workability, shrinkage, volume and the stability, etc. So this is the importance of aggregate. Now let us see how we classify the aggregates. There are different ways to classify the aggregates. First is according to source of aggregate. Second way is according to size of aggregates. Third is according to shape of aggregates. And fourth is according to unit weight of aggregates. So these are the classification basically methods based on which the classification of aggregate is done. Now according to the source of aggregate, there are two categories: natural aggregates and the artificial aggregates. Natural aggregates are the natural deposits of sand and gravel are obtained from the quarries by cutting rocks. Aggregates from river beds are of very good quality. The quarried rocks are cut or crushed to get the aggregates. So these are the natural aggregates, which are either found in the riverbed or quarried from the quarries basically, taken out from the quarries. Now there are 3 types of rocks as you know: igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks and the metamorphic rocks. And from these rocks you can get the aggregates. The chemical and other properties of such aggregates are mainly governed by the properties of their parent rocks. Igneous rocks are widely available on the face of the earth and are hard, tough and dense. And generally the aggregates generally taken from the igneous rocks because they provide the very good quality aggregate. Sedimentary rocks provide good quality aggregate, but highly laminated sedimentary rocks may lead to flaky or elongated aggregates. If we talk about the metamorphic rocks, they are not generally used for obtaining aggregates because of formation of thin structures which give flat, flaky and elongated pieces on crushing. Because here on crushing we get flat, flaky and elongated pieces, so generally they are not fit for making as aggregate for the concrete. Now let us take the second type, artificial aggregates. These are the aggregates obtained from natural aggregates by performing certain chemical reaction or applying force or heating of natural aggregates, etc. So that way means artificial aggregates are also ultimately obtained from the natural aggregates, but by doing some operations. Examples are broken bricks, fly ash, blast furnace slag. Broken bricks are not suitable for RCC work. These may be used for mass concreting or foundation work. Blast furnace slag is used for concrete where fire resistance is important basically. So if the prime concern is fire resistance, you can use the blast furnace slag aggregates. Now second criteria is according to size of aggregate. According to size of aggregate, you can classify aggregates in two categories. One is coarse aggregate, another is fine aggregate. What is coarse aggregate? Here the size of the aggregate equal to or more than 4.75 mm, then it is called coarse aggregate. Generally, these aggregates are available in the size of 80 mm, 40 mm, 20 mm, 10 mm and 4.75 mm. Fine aggregates are the aggregates which have particle size less than 4.75 mm. And according to their fineness, you can classify them into three categories: coarse, medium and fine. Like sand, if you take the case, coarse sand, medium sand and the fine sand. But ultimately these are the fine aggregates. Now size of aggregate depends upon the reinforcement and the type of work. Means which size of aggregate can be used for concrete, that will depend upon the reinforcement and the type of work. Means reinforcement here means that whether heavy reinforcement is provided or less reinforcement is provided, because it will decide the gap between the reinforcing bars and which size of maximum size of aggregate can pass through the gap between the reinforcement bars. So that way it will govern the maximum size of the aggregate. Large size aggregates will result into reduction of cement and water requirement. Also, if you are using the large size aggregate, they will reduce the degree of shrinkage of concrete, and also they are preferred for mass concreting works. So these are the uses where the large size aggregate can be used. The smaller size aggregates are preferred for the concrete used for thin members, heavily reinforced members and for high strength concrete. Because if the member is heavily reinforced means the gap between the reinforcing bars will be less. So here you cannot use the large size aggregate. So you have to use the smaller size aggregate basically. Now third is according to the shape of the aggregate. According to shape of the aggregate, you can classify the aggregates as rounded aggregate, angular aggregate, flaky aggregate, elongated aggregates. Let us take the rounded aggregate. Rounded aggregates are without edges or corners and are smooth basically. The surface area of rounded aggregate is comparatively smaller. They provide good workability but less strength due to weak bond with the cement paste. Because they are smooth basically and they do not form a good bond with the cement base. So that way they provide the weak, you can say, the concrete. The strength is not good basically, but workability is good because they are rounded, smooth, so there is no problem for the workability. Next is angular aggregate. Angular aggregates are identified by their well-defined edges and corners. Because these are angular aggregates, so they will be having well-defined edges and the corners. They provide less workable concrete, but with better bond, high strength and more durability. So if you are using the angular aggregates, though of course the workability will be less, but the concrete will be of having the good bond, high strength and the more durable. Now next is flaky aggregates. In these aggregates, basically the least dimension, that is the thickness of the aggregate, is reasonably small relative to other two dimensions, that is width and the length. If you compare the thickness of these aggregates with the width and length, so thickness is very less. Whereas in case of elongated aggregates, the greatest dimension, that is the length, is reasonably large relative to its mean dimensions. Means you here get the very long aggregates basically, which are thin and also the width is less. So generally we discourage the use of flaky and the elongated aggregates in concrete as they adversely affect workability, strength and the durability of concrete and lead to poor quality concrete. So that way their use is restricted. Now next is the unit weight of aggregate. As per the unit weight of aggregate, three types of aggregates are there: normal weight, light weight and the heavy weight. You see here that for different type of aggregate, the unit weight is given here. That for normal weight, the unit weight is 1520 to 1680 kg per meter cube, and most of the natural aggregates basically belong to this category. Lightweight aggregates are those aggregates which are having unit weight as less than 1120 kg per meter cube, and synthetic aggregates generally belong to this category of lightweight aggregates. Heavyweight aggregates are those aggregates which are having unit weight more than 2080 kg per meter cube, and these are the aggregates basically obtained from barium minerals, iron and titanium ores, etc. Special care and the strict quality control is required for concreting with light and heavy weight aggregates, because use of such aggregates may adversely affect workability and have the tendency of segregation. So because of that, special care and strict quality control is required. Concrete with lightweight aggregate is used for reducing the self weight of the structure, particularly in case of high-rise buildings, because in high-rise buildings the weight of the building will be much more, so we can reduce the weight of the building by using the lightweight aggregate. Lightweight aggregate, being porous and weak, are more suitable for non-structural elements. So because these are generally porous and weak, so we use them for non-structural elements basically. Concrete with heavyweight aggregates are used for nuclear radiation shield and high strength concrete. This is the use of high weight aggregates. Now let us see two properties of the aggregates: density and specific gravity. In this category we will see bulk density, apparent specific gravity, and another characteristic, the saturated surface dry condition, SSD. So let us see these properties. First let us look at the bulk density. So there are two important terms related to density: density of aggregate material and density of aggregate sample. Basically, the density of aggregate sample is the bulk density. Density of aggregate material means the material of which the aggregate is made of, basically. But here, as far as the bulk density is concerned, it is the density of the aggregate sample basically we are talking. So the two terms are different in the sense that density of aggregate sample is defined as the weight of the sample of aggregate that would fill a unit volume. Now the sample of aggregates always has the volume occupied by voids and the solid aggregates. That is why the density of aggregate sample is designated as bulk density of the aggregate. Bulk density depends on how densely the aggregates are packed, which further depends on the shape, size, grading and the moisture content of the aggregates. The bulk density is used to convert the weight proportion into volume proportion or vice versa, and to judge the quality and grading of aggregates by comparing it with normal density of that type of aggregates. It is also used for determining their void ratio. So these are the uses of knowing the bulk density of the aggregate basically. Now let us talk about specific gravity. The specific gravity of a solid is the ratio of its mass to that of an equal volume of distilled water at a specified temperature. So this is the general definition of specific gravity. But as you know, aggregates contain water permeable voids. So two measures of specific gravity of aggregates are used: apparent specific gravity and bulk specific gravity. Let us discuss first the apparent specific gravity. Apparent specific gravity is formally defined as the ratio of mass of a unit volume of the impermeable portion of aggregate, excluding the permeable pores in aggregate, to the mass of an equal volume of gas-free distilled water at the stated temperature. So this is the formal definition of the apparent specific gravity. Now apparent specific gravity is computed on the basis of net volume of aggregate, that is the volume excluding water permeable voids. So you can calculate the apparent specific gravity by dividing the dry mass of aggregate by the net volume of aggregate, and this ratio will be divided by the density of water. Means apparent specific gravity equal to dry mass of aggregate divided by net volume of aggregate, and this ratio finally divided by the density of water. Then you will get the apparent specific gravity. Now apparent specific gravity is intended to only measure the specific gravity of the solid volume. Therefore it will be the highest of the aggregate specific gravities. If you compare the specific gravity, apparent specific gravity and the bulk specific gravity, or the specific gravity basically that we call, then apparent specific gravity will be higher, because here we are only measuring the specific gravity of the solid volume basically. That way it will be highest. Now as per the BIS code IS 2386-1963 part 3, apparent specific gravity you can calculate as the C divided by C minus A. Here C is weight of aggregate dried in an oven at 100 degree centigrade to 110 degree centigrade for 24 hours, and A is the weight of saturated aggregates in water. So that way you can calculate the apparent specific gravity as from this formula as given in the IS code. Now bulk specific gravity, or simply specific gravity, it is computed on the basis of the total volume of aggregate including the water permeable voids. Now bulk specific gravities you can obtain by dividing the ratio of dry mass of aggregate and the total volume of aggregate by the density of water. Now, as per the BIS code IS 2386 1963 part 3, you can calculate the bulk specific gravity as C divided by B minus A. Here C is weight in grams of aggregates dried in an oven at 100 to 110 degrees centigrade for 24 hours. A is the weight in grams of saturated aggregate in water, and B is the weight in grams of saturated surface dry aggregates in air. So these are the three quantities, basically three weights, and by putting these values in the formula as given by the code, you can get the bulk specific gravity of the aggregate. The range of average specific gravity for many commonly available rocks is generally 2.6 to 2.7. Any variation in the specific gravity indicates the variation in shape or grading of the aggregate. Now it is useful in determining the percentage voids of the aggregates, and also it helps in converting the weight of aggregates into solid volume, and also used for determining the compacting factor in workability tests. So these are the uses of knowing the specific gravity of the aggregates. Now, what is saturated surface dry condition? SSD. It means that aggregate is saturated and there is no water film or the moisture on the surface of the aggregate. Means the aggregate is saturated but it doesn't have any moisture on the surface of aggregate. Then we call it as a saturated surface dry condition. The specific gravity based on the SSD condition is most frequently used in concrete technology. Because the water present in the internal pores of the aggregate does not contribute in the hydration process, so it can be considered as part of the aggregate basically. Means internal water present in the internal pores of the aggregate, we can just consider that water as the part of the aggregate. Now let us see water absorption of the aggregates. All aggregates have permeable pores of varying sizes over a wide range, which causes porosity in the aggregate. The porosity varies from 0 to 20% for commonly available rocks. The water absorption of aggregates is the percentage of water absorbed by an aggregate after immersing it into the water in a standard manner for 24 hours and then bringing it to saturated surface dry condition. The average range of water absorption for commonly available aggregate is 0.5 to 1%. So this is the water absorption. Now, surface moisture or the free moisture content. The free moisture content of aggregate is the quantity of water present in an aggregate sample in excess of the saturated surface dry condition. Means the water which is there in case of saturated surface dry condition, more than that, if there is some water, then that is the free moisture content or the surface moisture. This water is readily available for hydration process because it is at the surface. So this water is available for the hydration process of the cement basically. So necessary correction in measuring the quantity of water must be done during batching so as to maintain the desired water cement ratio. Here, because we have to be very careful for water cement ratio, measuring the amount of water, measuring the amount of cement. But here, since some water is available at the surface of the aggregate, so it is also available for hydration reaction. So that way necessary correction should be done for this available water basically. And it is important to know the free moisture content of aggregate at site basically, where you are preparing the concrete. In the calculation of the mix design, the weight of aggregates are based on the SSD condition, but in practice SSD condition is very rare. In fact, the actual moisture content of aggregates is mostly either more than or less than the required for SST condition. So it is necessary to make the necessary correction in the weight of aggregates and also in the quantity of water, so that the desired proportion of all the ingredients and the required water cement ratio could be maintained as per the mix design. So whatever water cement ratio you have decided for your mix design, so that can be maintained if necessary corrections are made to the weight of aggregate and also to the quantity of water. Any variation in the quantity of water will lead to weak and the poor quality of concrete. Now, next very important process or phenomena is the bulking of sand. Now, increase in volume of a given weight of sand, that is the fine aggregate I mean, caused by the presence of moisture within certain limit is called as bulking. What is the bulking means? That up to certain limit of the moisture presence, what happens? Increase in the volume of the fine aggregates occur. So this phenomena is called as the bulking. The presence of moisture forms a film of water around the sand particle due to the surface tension, which pushes the sand particles apart and volume of sand increases. Because now this film of water is pushing the sand particles apart, so the volume of the sand will increase, means bulking will occur. The volume of sand goes on increasing with the increase in the moisture content, but only up to a certain limit, that is generally 5 to 6%. If the moisture content goes beyond this limit, what happens then? The surface tension reduces the extent that the water film is destroyed. Means surface tension is reduced and water film is now broken, it is destroyed. So what happens then again? The sand particles lose the repulsive action now and the volume start reducing now. Here you see the bulking phenomena. On x-axis moisture content by percentage of weight is given, and on y-axis you see the bulking percentage of dry volume basically. So, and you see the different curves for different type of sand. You see that bulking phenomena is more prominent for the fine sand, whereas it is less for medium sand and it is least for the coarse sand. And you see that at a particular moisture content, generally you see here between 9 to 10% here, you see that bulking is maximum. So that way initially you see that when water content is less, it is less, bulking is almost 0. Now as the water content is increasing, moisture content is increasing, bulking goes on increasing basically, and at particular value it is maximum, something around 9 to 11, between 9 to 11 basically, and when the moisture content is increasing beyond this limit, again this bulking goes down basically. So this is the bulking phenomena basically. Now the range of bulking for the commonly available sand is 15 to 30%. The bulking plays an important role in volume batching of fine aggregates for manufacturing of cement. Basically we have to be very careful when we are doing batching by volume. If we are doing the batching by volume, means here it can create a problem, because due to bulking what will happen basically, that the measured volume will be more than the actual volume. So because of that it can create problem, means we will not get the appropriate amount of the fine aggregate that is required for our design mix. So necessary correction is required to compensate the bulking. If it is not made, then such concrete will be undersanded. Undersanded means the amount of sand will be less there, because the measured volume of bulk sand is greater than the actual volume of the sand basically. Now next test or the property of the aggregate is soundness of the aggregate. Soundness of the aggregate is the resistance of aggregate to disintegration and to change in volume with the change in the environment or physical conditions such as variation in temperature, freezing and thawing, alternate wetting and drying, etc. Soundness of aggregate also indicates the durability of aggregate. Aggregate which undergoes greater volume change under the above conditions is called unsound aggregate. Aggregate with large amount of water, reactive materials like lime, and porous and weak aggregates undergo large volume changes. Means this type of aggregates which is having water reactive materials like lime, also which are porous and weak, they undergo the large volume change. Then alkali aggregate reaction is very important in this regard. Now next we move to the alkali aggregate reaction. Earlier the aggregates were considered as inert material, but later on it was found that these are not fully inert material. Some of the aggregates may contain some amount of reactive silica which reacts with the alkalis present in the cement. It produces the alkali silicate gel which is of unlimited swelling time. Due to the swelling property of such gel, cracks are developed in the concrete, hence durability of concrete reduces. Alkali aggregate reaction can take place only if the reactive silica of particular fineness and that too in particular proportion is present. The factors responsible for alkali aggregate reactions are reactivity of aggregate, high alkali content of cement, that is more than 6.6% expressed as soda equivalent, availability of excess moisture and the optimum temperature condition, that is between 10 degrees to 38 degrees centigrade. The probability of such reaction can be reduced by changing the proportion or fineness of reactive silica or both, by controlling the availability of excess moisture or temperature. The mortar bar expansion test as defined in IS 2386 part 7 of 1963 is used to determine the potential reactivity of the aggregate. The use of unsound aggregates in concrete will degrade the quality of concrete. The change in volume of concrete may appear in the form of scaling, surface cracks, and disintegration of concrete over a considerable depth, which not only hamper the appearance but also may cause structural damages. It always preferred to avoid the use of unsound aggregates. So this way we discussed what are different type of aggregates are there, what are different properties of aggregates. Thank you for watching.